Hey, welcome back to One American's Perspective. Today I wanted to talk about something that I've been ruminating on just slightly, and I'm really beginning to kind of parse out my thoughts on it, but I figured I would do an episode on it, in part because I think it's helpful to verbalize a thought, to be able to evaluate its legitimacy or illegitimacy, and also to see what some of you guys might think about it and offer an opinion on that. And that is the idea of legacy, is kind of the word that I would use to describe the thought. And let me talk about what I mean by that. Legacy is picking up the ball, so to speak, from where it was left by our forefathers, both as individuals with our personal relatives and as a society from the previous generations before us. Picking up that ball and moving it further down the field, moving it further down in terms of the progress that our society has and whatever you consider quote unquote progress. So I've been thinking about that, and kind of a duality of two ideas comes to mind when I think about that. As often I think is the case with important subjects, is there seems to be like an interplay of competing ideas that actually supplement each other if you're able to see clearly enough with how they interact. And those are, on the one hand, you have the idea that, we're not responsible for the sins of our fathers. We weren't there to make the decisions. Therefore, how can we technically be held culpable for something that we had no part in? And then the other side of that is, the sins or the great actions, we can put it this way, that we stand on the shoulders of our fathers, which I think is equally true as being left over with the remnants of some of the less noble or downright wrong actions of the generations that came before us. We almost have an obligation, and this is really where I'm kind of working through this ideas. We have an obligation to pick up where they left off and to improve from there, and to maybe right some previous wrongs that have been done. Because at the end of the day, even if we weren't there to make the decision, we're left over with the mess. If you come home, if you have a pet at home, you might identify with this. You come home and the dog's been digging in the trash. They threw up on the ground. They made a mess of everything. You weren't the one that did it. You're not in a way responsible for it. I mean, I guess you could be if you left out the trash or you fed them something you shouldn't have. But was sticking with the analogy, you didn't make the mess, but the mess is still there. You have to, it's your responsibility to pick it up. The dog's not going to do it, just like our deceased relatives and forefathers of our society that we live in today. Their job is done. They've done what they've done, whether it was for right or for wrong. For better or for worse, they did what they did, and we're left with some of the remnants of that. When I hear things like systemic racism, or when I, on the negative side of things, or when I hear things like democracy and freedom, those are all kind of the leftovers to in a larger extent or another. And I don't want to get too much into any one of those specific topics or the plethora of other things that could be brought up with this. In this video, I will in the future. We have to deal with the reality of what's been left behind for us, or what's been given to us. And sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not so great. So how do we incorporate ourselves into that legacy as part of that story, knowing that one day, our children and our ancestors will be left with, the remnants of the good and the bad that we did. And that's something that I've been thinking about now, of what's left over in my personal life are some things that I, maybe my forefathers didn't confront, and that I now have the obligation, or I see it as an obligation, to build upon, to improve upon. Because it's there whether I like it or not. Conversely, again, that's a positive thing. I am where I am today because somebody else laid the train tracks for me to get to this point. No, I didn't lay the foundation to get to this point. Somebody else did. and how do I build on top of that? And I think that kind of goes in conjunction with some of that American responsibility that I talked about prior to the elections last month. Of we have a responsibility to build upon that. We have a responsibility to identify what had been done poorly or could have been done better, but also to pay homage to the things that were done well and recognize that it's up to us to move forward from there, both as individuals and as part of a greater society. So I'm going to continue to reflect on that. Maybe you will too. If you have anything to add, please leave it below in the comments or just send it to me direct. And look forward to talking to you guys later. Take it easy.